Neither my window wrapping or light cause him to blink, flinch, or even move. I look over, and the passenger is slumped forward onto the dash. I tried the doors, but they were locked. This all began to creep me out, so I called down to the sheriff's station and I request a Code 2 unit up to my location to help me check them out. Code 2 means no lights and no sirens. As I'm on the phone with dispatch, she asks me to get a license plate number, just as a PG&E Power Company truck comes rumbling down from up the closed road. I move to go around the truck to get the license plate number, but the car's gone. I talked to the driver of the truck, and he said there was an 80-foot tree down across the road, and that he didn't think it would be open for a day or so. So the question is, where the hell did the car go? There was a tree up one way, and a barricade down the other. It's kept me a bit unsettled when I've stopped at accidents and hazards ever since. In the description, you can see the intersection via Google Maps. The barricades were apparently 5 feet in front of the camera, and the tree was up around the distant bend. I've always loved the outdoors. I was fortunate enough to be born in the Great Pacific Northwest, the Western Washington Cascades to be exact. My father and I spent much of my early years of life exploring the mountains, fishing, and hunting. There are parts of the Cascades that I know like the back of my hand. One of those places is Goblin Creek, up the Index Galima Road off Highway 2. When I was a kid, we would drive up there to do some fishing and shooting, but also to collect a specific type of rock that, when cut in half and polished, would resemble a scenic picture of the view of the mountains from within a cave. I don't remember the true name of these stones. We just called them picture rocks. My father's friend and neighbour owned an art gallery mineral shop that used to be a church. If you've ever driven through Startup on your way from Salton to Gold Bar on Highway 2, you might remember seeing the robot sculpture outside the shop that my dad built. This is the place where we sold the stones for $2 a pound. For a preteen, it was quite lucrative revenue. The walk from the creek where we harvested these rocks to the dirt road wasn't particularly long, but lengthy enough that you could presumably get lost while en route if one didn't know where to go. In the years we spent at this creek, I'd only ever seen 2 other people out there. One was a game warden that heard the gunshots from our target practicing sessions and tracked us down to make sure that everything was fine. The other is the subject of my curiosity. When I was about 14, I distinctly remember hauling a backpack full of these rocks up from the creek to my dad's truck. Along the way, I ran into a man that looked to be about 30 years old. We both appeared to be surprised that we would run into anyone in this rather remote section of the mountains. But as I got closer to this man, he seemed to grow increasingly more startled, as if he was seeing a ghost. He didn't say anything as I passed. He just stared at me, seemingly trying to find out the appropriate words to ask me something. After passing him, I remember thinking how much this guy looked like he could be in my family. The similarities were striking. I continued to the truck. I dumped off my load of rocks, and I headed back down to the river to my dad. When I arrived, I told him about the encounter, and I asked if he had seen this man, to which he replied he hadn't. I have remembered this encounter quite vividly since then. Last year, I was visiting my family in Snohomish, and decided to head up to Old Goblin Creek for nostalgic purposes. It had been about 15 years since I was last up there. Along the way up there, I found out that the Index Galima Road had apparently washed out years before. Luckily, I knew another way up there via Jack Pass. I found the dirt road, and I parked where my dad used to park, and I proceeded to walk through the woods down to the creek. Along the way, I saw something that absolutely shook me to the core. As I was about halfway through the woods, I was startled to see someone else coming up from the creek. A boy, about 14 years old. He was wearing a backpack that looked to be burdened by heavy weights. As we got closer, I began to get increasingly confused and shocked, as the boy looked exactly like I did at his age. I meant to say something to him as I passed, but I couldn't figure out the right words to express what I was thinking at that moment. He passed me and kept going. I walked a little way and finally stopped when it all really hit me. I remembered the encounter from my teenage years and realized I had just lived the other half of the experience. I turned around to catch up with the boy in the thick western Washington woods. I ran all the way back up the road to where my trap was to find nothing. There wasn't anywhere else but the road for him to have gone, and I hadn't stalled so long as to not be able to catch up with him. He was simply gone. Curiosity got the better of me, so I hurried down to the creek, half expecting to find my dad fishing on the bank, 15 years younger. I found nothing. I ended up going home, and decided that this experience was just too unbelievable to tell any of my friends or family. I just wanted to get this out there to the wonderful Reddit community to see what others think, and hopefully to see if anyone else has had this type of experience as well. I used to work in music, and I toured with this band. Josh was the guitarist. His best friend, Matt, had died a couple of years back. He always talked about the kid, and he seemed like a great guy. Josh always had this reoccurring dream where Matt was standing on this abandoned street, which, supposedly, was metaphorical for purgatory. Josh had all these conversations with Matt in these dreams, and because he had overdosed unexpectedly, he felt like his spirit was not able to move on. At the end of these dreams, Matt would always take a bulb from the streetlight on the street they were standing in the middle of. Josh described these dreams in extreme detail, and even I could pretty much picture what the street looked like. Fast forward to about 6 months into touring with these guys. They were huge Bright Eye fans, and wanted to stop in Cassadaga, Florida. The Bright Eye singer wrote an album there, and it was a really creepy, spiritual, medium type of place. It might be worth noting that 6 out of the 7 people I was traveling with were atheists. So we drive into Cassadaga around 2 or 3 in the morning, and we just drive around for a bit. Suddenly, this big black dog comes into the middle of the road and just stops and looks at us. The guys in the band were weird as fuck and were saying things like, "Follow that dog, it's trying to show us something." In my mind, I'm just thinking, these guys are fucking idiots. We follow this dog for a few blocks, as it was walking pretty slow. All of a sudden, we turn a street, and the dog bolts. We try and speed up to catch it, but Josh says, "Stop the fucking van. This is it." We're all confused, and he gets out of the van and looks around. This is it. This is the street in my dreams. We hang around for about 15 minutes, and from the way he had described the street in his dreams, from the houses being on the left to a park on the right, it was definitely the street. As we get in the van, a street light goes off, and we just drive away. He claims he never had any more dreams about it, as that was closure on everything. At 12 years of age, my mum let me stay in the truck as she went grocery shopping. As I wait, I see an old guy walking towards the truck with an indescribable look on his face, staring at me as if I knew too much. He stops 5 feet from the truck, and he looks at me for a couple of seconds, and heads back the exact way he came, For some reason, I found this very traumatic, and I was confused at that age. 5 or 6 years later, my dad was showing me home videos of us at Yellowstone Park. I must have only been about 1 or 2 years of age in these videos. At Old Faithful, I noticed the same guy, same look, and same clothes, peering at us, on camera, looking directly into the lens. I'm freaked out, just telling this. I used to work in a building that had 3 levels of sub-basements, with the piece of lab equipment I typically worked on in the lowest basement. I had the only key. There was a wired phone in there, and I did work late some nights, but not this night. I was sleeping alone in my apartment when I woke up to a call on my cell phone from my girlfriend at 3 AM. She was in hysterics and asking why I scared her. Apparently, she received a call from that basement phone just a minute earlier, with someone who sounded like me, slowly repeating her name until crackling and fading out. My apartment was only 10 miles away from work. I thought she was lying, but I saw the 3 AM call from the basement phone logged on her cell myself. Still freaks me the fuck out. Hi guys, Lazy here, and I hope you enjoyed this video. There's most likely an explanation for all of these incidents, but I thought they were fun stories either way, and you never know, maybe we really are in the Matrix. Dun, dun, dun. If you'd like to watch another 4chan video that I made, you can do that by following the link on the screen now. There's a few new posts in that. Yakuza, members of Japanese organized crime syndicates, effectively gangsters. One thing they are extremely well known for are their strict codes of conduct. For instance, should a low-ranking member of the Yakuza make a mistake, he's expected to ritualistically cut off portions of his own fingers and present them to his boss as penance. As of 2015, there are an estimated 100,000 Yakuza members, and with such a strong presence in Japan, there are inevitably going to be many true, horrific experiences to share. Here are but a handful of stories from people who encountered Yakuza members, or have been involved in the Japanese crime underworld themselves.
היי.
שלום, ברוכים הבאים לפרק הראשון בסדרה החדשה שלנו במיינקראפט. איתי כאן הרוסי המשוגע, תגיד שלום.
Viewer discretion
שלום,
is advised.
אני רוסי ישראלי קשה.
אנחנו לא יודעים אם הוא
Number
רוסי או
one.
באמת, הוא סתם עובד עלינו, אנחנו מנסים לברר את זה. הראש הגדול שלו...
During high school, I used to be a part of a...
מרובעים יש פה כל מקום, אני לא מבין את זה, מה זה?
שכחנו להגיד לכם שוב.
אימא'לה, ראש מרובע תוקף אותי, ראש מרובע תוקף אותי, אימא'לה. אני לא מבין מה זה המשחק
זה בגללי.
הקוש הזה.
כלב שאוכל...
שמתי לב, הנה אתה.
קורצים קוביות. הנה,
אתה אמר...
קורצים קוביות. תכין לי שירותים, אני לא יודע מה זה המשחק המטופש הזה. איפה יש עצים בכלל? אני לא יודע מה זה עץ בכלל, איפה עצים?
לא יודע, זה קוביות שחורות כאלה.
מה קוביות שחורות? מה גם זה חרק?
זה עושה טראומה לכל הצופים, אם יש בכלל חיים.
כל המשחק...
צופים יקרים, אין טעם להתלונן על הסרטון הזה ביוטיוב על פיגור יתר, הם כבר מודעים לזה.
בוא'נה, אני רואה פה איזה ריבוע מרובע, ריבוע עם 4 צלעות.
4 צלעות, באמת. ריבוע עם 4 צלעות, תחשוב חדש.
אני שמתי לב שלשחקנים אין משהו בולט למטה, למה?
הם עברו עיקור.
יש להם פיתה?
group of thugs. We didn't do anything too severe. We'd just work together and shoplift every now and again, and vandalize shops and buildings with graffiti. Honestly, looking back, I was an asshole. I regret those days. One of the members of our group was called Kenji, and he used to be a Yakuza. But he wasn't particularly scary or anything. In fact, he was always kind to us. He'd tell us stories about the world of the Yakuza. The story I'm about to tell you now is one of the stories he told to me. When he had just joined the Yakuza and was still a newbie, his work just involved helping out his Yakuza colleagues. He was made to buy drinks and cigarettes. Basically, he was just an errand boy. Kenji hadn't wanted to join the Yakuza in the first place. He was made to join half forcefully, and was thinking about quitting if he wasn't able to do anything interesting. But one day, one of the Yakuza came up to Kenji. "Hey, Kenji, could you help me out?" It was probably just some boring job again. But as usual, Kenji didn't have the option to say no. So, without asking about what the job was, he just nodded his head and accepted the job. "Okay, here you go." And the Yakuza member passed Kenji the key to a car. "What the fuck is this?" Kenji asked. The Yakuza guy just sniggered. "It's your first job." Kenji was then given a map, and was told to drive the car down to a scrapyard located 20 kilometers out of town. According to him, all Kenji had to do was give his name, and the car would be disposed of by the people working there. Without fully understanding why, Kenji drove the car to the scrapyard as he was told. When he finally got there, he found a few men were lying in wait for him. One of them came up to him. "Is this Akio's car?" the guy asked. Kenji confirmed that it was, and as soon as he did, the guy said, "Okay, get out and give me the key." Kenji didn't really understand what was happening, so he just listened to the men and obediently did what they said. According to Kenji, in the Yakuza world, it's best just to do what you're told and ask questions later. The man got into the car and drove the car into a space between two massive iron plates. As he got out of the car, he called, "Okay, do it," to another man, who'd moved to a control room without Kenji noticing. The two iron plates began to suddenly move and slowly crush the car into a flat plate of metal. When Kenji was telling me this story, this is where he paused to light a cigarette. "It sounds like you were just made to help in disposing of an old car," I said. Kenji then said to me, I wasn't finished. You see, when the two iron plates started to crush the car, I heard a scream from the inside. And when the two iron plates were really close to each other, there was a definite splattering sound. That wasn't the sound of metal being crushed. In the end, I didn't ask the guys there about it, and I didn't confront the Yakuza who'd given the errand to me. But you know, I did have a hunch. That's why I didn't check the trunk of the car. Kenji started to nervously laugh. I felt really sick. Number 2. This is a story I heard from a Yakuza member who I was friendly with back in the day. Apparently, he used to hang around with another young Japanese Yakuza member. Basically,
Yapamam valla.
They spent their time going around town